Okay, everybody, let's get started here. We got a full 90-minute program here that we're really excited to bring to you here today. How are we doing, Edmonton? Yay! Let's try again. How are we doing, Edmonton? The Oilers didn't look very good last night, did they? Okay, you guys sound like you're at the game. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to RDAR's 4th Annual Research Showcase. I'm Sean Haney of RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio on Rural Radio 147 Sirius XM. And actually in Alberta here, Real Ag on the weekend, you can hear on QR Calgary and 880 CHED. This is my first time at the RDAR Showcase, and I am super excited to see some of the examples of the research that is being done. We're going to have some great presentations up here, as well as you saw in the hallways, we've got a number of different poster projects to showcase what some of the work is that RDAR has funded. This event really has grown each year, and I'm thrilled to be here with you for this 4th annual event. I've gotten to know RDAR a lot better, actually, over the past few months doing some work, and if you haven't seen the first episode of the Final Mile podcast, I encourage you to check that out at realagriculture.com, our Real Agriculture YouTube channel. It is a great, well, I'm biased. Ted was fantastic. I don't know about the host. He's a bit of a jackass. But a great conversation with Ted Billier from RDAR. And we talked about the need for research and the opportunities for Canada and how we execute on that. And we have a lot of great things happening from a research perspective here in the province. You know, I get to hear from a lot of different people and appreciate the difference that research makes in furthering agriculture, the agricultural sector in not just Alberta, but across Canada and internationally. Research is really like it's one of those things we talk about, and we need to have research, we need to have innovation, and we need to know kind of where we're going, trying to solve some of these problems. But it does take a commitment to do so and see it executed. We were talking earlier with speed and efficiency as well, also being important. But in the RDAR acronym, results, right? And farmers also being a part of that decision making. So it's great to see so many projects and people here today who are passionate about the industry of agriculture. You know, before we dive into highlighting some great research here today, we'd like to outline kind of the flow of the rest of the day. So, like I said, we're not going to take longer than 90 minutes because we want to make sure that you have time to check out the 22 different poster projects that are out in the hall. You'll find restrooms at the back of the room, and the muster point is across the parking lot. Be careful because it is icy out there. Speaking of parking, be sure to collect a parking pass from the reception desk to waive the parking fee as well. I'm going to call up Dr. Mark Redmond to read some comments from our Federal Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, Mr. Heath MacDonald.
Thank you, Sean. I'll do my best not to try and slip into a PEI accent. Some of you may know I spent some years on PEI. It's a great pleasure to bring greetings from the Honourable Heath MacDonald, Minister of Agriculture. So the Minister writes, I'd like to recognise the RDAR team, along with producers, researchers and industry, as you gather to celebrate another outstanding year. Your innovative research continues to help Alberta farmers and ranchers make their businesses more productive, profitable and sustainable. Our government is proud to partner with Alberta to support your great work through our shared investments under the Sustainable CAP Agriculture Partnership, and we're proud to partner with RDAR to help Alberta farmers adopt sustainable practices through our On-Farm Climate Action Fund. I wish you all the best as you explore new horizons for Alberta world-class agriculture. Thank you.
RDAR receives federal funding from the Sustainable CAP and from off-CAF Agricultural Climate Solutions. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Garth Roswell, MLA for Vermilion Lloydminster Wainwright, to bring greetings from the Government of Alberta.
Well, thank you and good afternoon, everybody. And before I get too much further, I'd just like to recognize the official opposition agriculture critic, Heather Sweet. If you want to stand up and wave. We serve on a lot of committees together, and she's always got very thoughtful input into policies, so I appreciate that you're here. Thanks for coming. So I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Agriculture and Irrigation Minister R.J. Sigurdsson for the RDAR's annual showcase. We are proud of our government's dedication to strengthen and securing the future of agriculture and agribusiness sectors in our province. And I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to the people in this room for helping us fulfill that commitment. And I just wanted to tell a little personal story here. I used to have a farm supply business. We sold fertilizer, chemical, and feed and that type of stuff. And I've kind of prided myself as being an agronomic value to my customers and kind of pushing the envelope of thought and technology in what we did. And so that was 25 years ago when I got out of it. I'd be of no use whatsoever. So that's how important it is, what you guys do, and extending new technologies and making sure it gets to the field and on the farm. It's critically important. So Alberta is an agricultural province. The sector is deeply ingrained in our history, just like our province. It continues to grow and transform, whether it's incorporating new technologies, adapting hardships, or exploring innovation. Alberta's farmers, ranchers, and business owners are resilient, dedicated, and resourceful. Our province is renowned for high-quality food and agricultural products, a reputation that's hard-earned and well-deserved. And with RDAR's help, maybe we can continue with that reputation. So thanks in no small part to people like yourselves. With your help, Alberta agriculture exports about $17.5 billion of food or agricultural products. And I understand that's 1/5 of our national exports come out of Alberta. So again, we're really punching above our weight there. Whether you're a producer, a researcher, or industry leader, your contributions and dedication to the ag sector have helped Alberta products reach the shelves of grocery stores, here at home, and to new global markets. Alberta knows agriculture is what we do, and we do it well. We are deeply committed to an independent, high-impact agricultural research because we know that's the foundation of a thriving, resilient ag sector. RDAR partners with the private sector to fund research, meaning every dollar invested works harder and for Alberta's producers and taxpayers alike. And I heard this morning at the session that it's 3 times. For the amount of money that comes in, and gets multiplied 3 times. That's really, really good. Alberta's ag research delivers real benefits and tangible results. Since 2020, the government has committed more than $370 million of RDAR over a 10-year time frame to fund producer-led research that impacts the entire sector, from sugar beets to in the south to bees in the north. Through this funding, we've also boosted annual funding for Alberta's 12 applied research associations, which I saw where they were this morning at the talk, to $4 million over the past 3 years. Alberta is a huge province, so having applied research associations conduct targeted, boots-on-the-ground research that benefits farmers in their own areas. And I see that through Lakeland College. And Lakeland College's kind of their purpose is to make sure that they train kids on technology that can be used on the farm right away. So it kind of lends itself to what RDAR does as well. So RDAR's partnerships, to ensure Alberta's ag sector remains innovative, competitive on a national and global scale. From bees to beets and canola to calves, RDAR has funded many key projects that are sure to have an impact. Since 2021, RDAR has invested in hundreds of projects, created jobs, and supported partnerships. More than half of RDAR's project outcomes reach the farm within 3 years. So that's quite an accomplishment as well. Together, we are ensuring Alberta continues to be the best place for ag research, growth, and opportunity. Thank you to RDAR, and I commend the dedication that you have in this room, and I'll do everything I can to maintain the funding going forward. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mr. Roswell. was mentioned already, we're also joined here today by Ms. Heather Sweet, Shadow Minister for Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation, and MLA for Edmonton Manning, and she's going to come up and say a few words as well.
Thanks, Sean. And thank you to RDAR. It's a unique opportunity, I must say, to be an opposition member, being allowed to come and speak after a government member. So I think it really does speak to all of you in this room about our willingness to work together in collaboration for the best and prosperous future for all Albertans. So as was said, I'm Heather Sweet. I am the critic for RJ. We get along, it's all good. I am in Edmonton. I get that too. I have producers in my riding, so 2 points for Sweet. All right. I also grew up in southern Alberta. My family is originally from Pincher Creek, and so I spent a lot of time on Mixed Farm. And so agriculture is my family, and it is my passion. And so it's a pleasure to gather with you and talk about building a stronger agricultural sector. And today feels especially meaningful as we celebrate all that we have accomplished together and what we are going to achieve in the future. And I also want to congratulate RDAR for their leadership for making a difference in the lives of so many Albertans. Closer to home, the importance of our agriculture sector has never been clearer. This year has brought turbulence to many of Alberta's key industries. Considering the policy shifts in the South and globally around the world, these disruptions have challenged all of us. But they're also a reminder of something that is deeply Albertan. Our ability to come together, to innovate locally, and to build resilience from the grassroots up. I've seen how hardworking Albertans in our agriculture sector empower people, whether it's through research, innovation, food security, or economic development. Our agriculture sectors are more than just businesses. They are families. They are reflections of our shared values and our commitment to each other and to our communities. They are resilient, they are the community leaders, and they're built on collaboration. I also want to take this time to congratulate Dr. David Chalik, who has served as the RDAR chair for the past 5 years. Your leadership, your experience, your expertise, and your dedication has been instrumental in strengthening the impact that RDAR is today in our province. So thank you. And to the incoming chair, Darcy, looking forward to working with you and the rest of the board. And I see you in the back. And as Garth said, we're both here to help advocate for RDAR. It doesn't matter what party side it is. We understand the importance of this, so I know between Garth and I and the minister, we will continue to do that work together. So on behalf of my colleagues in the Alberta NDP caucus, we are actively wanting to work with you. And I want you to know that we are listening. We are committed to creating an environment that supports research, investment, encourages growth, and honors the spirits of community and enterprise. Together, we can build an Alberta that is thriving economically, socially, and sustainably. So thank you for having me here today, and I'm happy to chat over the next afternoon and look forward to hearing about all the great things that have been happening over the last year.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. You know, agriculture really is it does need a bipartisan effort, so it's great to see that showcased here today. RDAR is grateful for the support it receives from all levels of government, its membership and co-funders. It allows RDAR to invest in innovations that are driving change in the industry. Are we ready to see some examples? Okay, no, that's lame. That was actually, you guys are getting worse. Are we ready to hear some examples? Yeah, okay, here we go. One of these innovative investments was Seller Insights, which I was really excited. I thought we were going to talk about wine, but it's potatoes. So let's get to it here. In the last year, because potatoes is honestly one of the really exciting things that's happening in Alberta. In the last year, Alberta produced 27% of Canada's potatoes. Actually, I was at an event where It was at the Calgary Stampede where Minister Sigurdsson had pointed out to Minister McCauley at the time that Alberta was producing more potatoes than PEI. A bit of a poke there. This is largely due to being grown under irrigation, of course. Growing up on an irrigated farm myself, I can tell you all about that. We got major processors in the region like McCain, Cavendish, Lamb Weston. They're all investing here. And they're growing and also storing quality potatoes is really a key. You can produce the crop, but if we're not storing it and holding the quality, we've really gone backwards. Seller Insights helps potato growers, processors, and storage operators minimize loss and detect early signs of spoilage, excess shrink, and poor fry color. You know what? Enough of me. Let's hear from Terry. Please welcome Terry Sidork, CEO of Seller Insights, and he's going to talk about their exciting work that they're doing. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Sean. Just wait for the presentation to pop up here. There we go. Yeah, so let me quickly provide a little bit of a background. So I've been in the early stage company space for, I think it's 27 years now. Seller Insights will be my 7th company that I've been working with. Prior to that, I was with Nortel, 5 years in finance, 5 years in product, so a vast array of experiences. And close to home here, I attended University of Alberta, where I got my mechanical engineering degree while playing hockey for the Bears, and then moved on for a small stint in the energy sector before returning to do my MBA, and that's when I left and went on to Nortel. So I've had some great experience and worked with some great teams, and now the journey has taken me to Seller Insights, which I'll tell you a little bit about. So I'll give you a little bit of background in terms of the agenda, the origin story, the market problem, the opportunity that we're addressing, as well as Potato Storage 101, just a bit of a background for those who aren't familiar what goes on with potatoes. My colleagues that aren't in agriculture are fascinated when I bring this up over a dinner conversation in terms of what goes into potato storage, so hopefully share some of that. And then lastly, what we're doing at Seller Insights tied to the RDAR initiatives that we've been supported by. Oh, is it working? So it's working. Oh, top one. So before I move on, I wanted to quickly show here, so long-term storage is often referred to as a second season. A lot of investment and opportunity goes into the growing side of the operation, investments, capital, a lot of innovation, but ultimately the second season, or when harvest happens and potatoes and other root vegetables, et cetera, go into storage, it's often a forgotten aspect. And so I'll talk a little bit about what's happening there. But long-term storage is often referred to as a second season. I want to refer also to this storage facility. This is a characteristic of about a 15 to 20-year-old storage facility. You'll see these all along the highway down in Tabor, Lethbridge area. This loading is happening such that that bin is being filled probably within 5 or 6 feet of that domed facility, and then you see that it's a dirt floor with culverts that are laid as the potatoes are loaded into that bin. Important to note, because I'll tell you a little bit about how it's progressing these days. Safe harbor statement, bottom line is there's a lot of things that are uncertain. That's about what research is. We're actually applying some of the research that's been done in the past in a practical sense and looking for a commercial opportunity for growers and processors in the marketplace. This is Ross Cobleson. Ross is a 6th generation potato grower out of Florenceville, New Brunswick. Ross is an individual that loves to tinker. He loves to look at things. He's an innovator. And ultimately, he's been involved with potatoes for a number of years. He saw the investment happening on the on the crop side of things to increase yield by 3, 4, 5, 8% year over year. But then noted that when potatoes go into storage, that on a good storage facility, you'll automatically lose 4% through respiration. Top that with potential for rot issues, quality issues, diseases, etc., and that loss can increase substantially from that small 4%. So when you're investing to create 6 or 7% and you're ultimately putting in storage and losing, he felt that there was an opportunity here. Hence, Seller Insights was born. Bottom line is, we're looking to empower growers and processors to reduce post-harvest losses, strengthen food security, and boost resource efficiency through actionable insights. And so for us, our objective is to maximize the value for the grower, reduce the risk of the supply chain for the processor, and ultimately run storage as a competitive advantage. So a little bit of the origin story. Stellar Insights was founded in 2023 through Carrot Ventures, which is a venture studio model. Ross approached Carrot Ventures, says, I think I have an idea. I think there's an unserved part of the market. Here's what I'm thinking we need to do. He sold that story to Carrot Ventures out of Calgary, and ultimately they did due diligence and then created an entity for Stellar Insights, vended in the work product and the IP to that point, and stood up an organization, provided some working capital, and then we started. I joined shortly after that. As a result of where we were, we've had successful grant initiatives that have supported us along the way, RDAR being, of course, one of those. But IRAP, through the commercial innovation, Alberta Innovates is sponsored through their commercial associate program, has allowed us to advance the hiring of individuals. We have the initial RDAR grant. This is the second one, and it's a carry-on from what we're doing, what we did before, and then CANE. So the RDAR grant that we're working with now is a continuation where it's early detection of rot in storage bins. We went out for pre-seed financing a year after standing the company up. The market was tough. Capital was very tough to raise. We didn't have a lot of success. There was intrigue, but a lot of people that chose to stay on the sidelines. Carrot, as the founding entity, came to the table with initial seed capital of about $1 million for Carrot Ventures. We followed that up about a year, 15 months later with our first formal seed financing. It ended up being oversubscribed. The market changed substantially. And we closed that in August 2025. Co-leads on that were Accelerate Fund 4, as well as Tallgrass Ventures out of Calgary. And then we had Carrot participate, along with the University of Alberta Fund, and then University of Calgary Seed Fund, and Angels. Most recently, in fact, Friday we closed in terms of money hitting the bank, and this morning I noticed that the press releases went out. We added SVG and Thrive to our cap table. So now we've raised a substantial amount of money that we can take this business forward with a specific focus on long-term storage. So why storage? Ultimately, global post-harvest losses are in excess of $100 billion across multiple crops. Obviously, potatoes, apples, onions, etc. But for us, because of Ross's background, potatoes is our focus, specifically processed potatoes. And we're looking to address loss types that include rot, disease, shrink, quality, sprouting, all the things that will contribute to ultimately a loss in value to the grower and a concern for the processor. So what happens with potatoes? One of the things that was mentioned earlier, Alberta is now the #1 potato producing province in the country. The combination of Alberta, Manitoba, New Brunswick, and PEI make up 78% of the production in Canada. So those are the three markets. Ross exists and was a founder in New Brunswick. The headquarters are here in Alberta, and we're in the process of hiring into the province of Manitoba. Interesting enough, 60% of all potatoes produced globally end up in some sort of a processed state. 60% of the 60 is ultimately French fries of one sort or another, and then the other 20% or another 20% in sort of chips, the potato chips, the Lays, the Frito-Lays, etc. that you find, and ultimately making it to the consumer through that supply chain. Why this is important and why storage is important, when you're looking at processed potatoes, specifically fries and chips, things like sugars are important, taste, processing in terms of how they go through the factory. Color, McDonald's is adamant that that bouquet of French fries has got to look special, and so they are very, very focused on the color of the color that comes out of the frying of potatoes, and then ultimately specific gravity. Specific gravity is extremely important due to the processing and the cutting aspect of when a potato goes through the factory and ultimately ends up into a French fry, for example. Interesting enough, the combination of Canada and US, where our focus is now, is the ranked #4 globally with 550 million hundredweight of potatoes produced on an annual basis, which equates to about $8.2 billion. So a substantial market. Interesting enough, if you look at China, it's about 4 times bigger than that. India, twice as big as that. And then the Ukraine, which is the 1, 2, and 3, is about the same size as the US as far as production. So what is the storage challenges? Well, this is an example of a current storage or a newer storage. Interestingly enough, you'll see that this pile here, or this bin here, is about 200 feet by 50 feet, and then it's 18 feet deep. On the top left corner is a mezzanine, so you can walk the pile, and I'll explain to you why that's important. But ultimately, the age-old process of checking on the bin was walking it on a daily basis and visually observing, is the pile depleted when I look at it from the top? If I look at the cross tubes for airflow, do I see any sort of liquid coming out of the pile? And then ultimately, do I smell anything? Literally going in and using your nose to detect whether there is a rot problem happening. And so this is where Ross saw that there was an opportunity, and ultimately felt that if you can't manage what you don't measure, and so there's an opportunity to get measurements happening. This is a typical cycle of a potato after harvest. The numbers are probably not right, so anybody out there that is close to potato growing would argue with some of these numbers. But ultimately, there's phases that happen once a potato is harvested. Number one is the potato's pulp temperature has got to be at least 55 or lower when it's coming out of the ground. What's interesting about that is in southern Alberta, if you have warm temperatures you're on harvest, then it can create a problem. Warm potatoes going into storage typically will present an opportunity where the rot will accelerate or become a problem. So it goes through various phases: drying, pre-cooling, and treatment period, and then obviously down to a temperature, ideal storage temperature in that 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, or even lower for seed potatoes. Why is that important? You're basically pushing that potato into a dormant state, which makes it more attributable to last for a long-term storage. So this is extremely interesting. You'll see that humidity is 90 or 95%. Manitoba will run probably around 90% on their storages, where in southern Alberta you're pushing 97, 98%. And so it's a very harsh environment. The three things that are measured during storage traditionally are humidity, CO2, and temperature. Those are the levers that the grower has, in essence, to manage those potatoes through storage and ensure quality is maintained. This is an example of one of those dome type of storage facilities. So when potatoes go into storage, they are then part of the process which actually feeds the factory. You heard Simplot, Cavendish, McCain's, and Lamb Weston and others that basically rely on potatoes on a 365-day-a-year basis to ultimately ensure that the efficiency of their factories and utilization is up. So it's important that growers have the ability to store potatoes for a long period of time. The processors then look to see who can store long based on the facilities they have, based on the management practices they have, such that they can maintain that quality through the entire season. So what they'll typically do is schedule some growers earlier, some growers later, and then some as long as 10 or 11 months. And we, in fact, were in a bin last year where that grower stored over 12 months potatoes. Here's a factory of Simplot factory outside Portage la Prairie in Manitoba. A Frito-Lay factory, again from a chips perspective, and then a McCain factory that you will see in fact, they doubled it in the Tabor area. So given all that, we launched our product, which was a platform to basically initially provide an interface for monitoring of those CO2, temperature, and humidity with thresholds. The thresholds are simply ensuring that the environmental conditions within storage stay within the realms that the grower is looking for. And by the way, growers all have their own way of doing things. Why they do things the way they do is because dad did it that way and granddad did it that way, and overall they've had years and years of what they would refer to as relative success. We see an opportunity through technology and just a general socialization that we can get better by sharing practices such that the bar gets raised for everybody. We have the proactive alerts, which I talked to. If you exceed a temperature, a CO2 level, you'll get an on-platform alert as well as an off-platform alert, should you choose to. And then early detection and tracking of rot is something that we're focused on now. And then lastly is we've introduced trending reports with the platform, so you can see things that are happening over time, whether it's the last 24 hours, the last 7 days, last 30 days, as well as comparative across the various bins that you have. Here's an illustration of a potato storage facility for those that aren't familiar. So what happens typically is on the left-hand side, you'll see large fans that will initiate the flow of air through the facility. On the right side there, in this particular facility, is a cooling cooling wall that ultimately allows the grower to reduce temperature. This becomes important if you're storing upwards of 9 to 10 months, because now you're into June, July, and August. And so that's something that is extremely important and not everyone will invest in. Behind the cooling wall is the humidification wall. This is not unlike what you have at home on your furnace, a humidifier, such that there is water down the cooling wall which introduces humidified air into the process. That air then is pushed down the plenum, and if you look at the bottom of that picture that just came up on the screen, you'll see the cross ventilation. In this particular case, that cross ventilation is done through concrete channels versus the steel culverts that was evident on that first picture. That air is then pushed under. In this case here, it's a concrete floor versus the dirt, slotted such that airflow can happen and push up through the potatoes that exist in the storage facility. And after that, it's basically recycled down into the return, and subsequently that journey starts all over again. So what do we do around that? And we're not the only ones, so I don't want to convey that, is we've introduced a LoRaN wireless battery-operated sensors that we put into storages that are looking for that capability. A lot of the newer storages have that, and I'll address that in a second. But ultimately, we're reading sensors that have the humidity, temperature, and CO2 at the return in storage, which is usually the far end of the storage facility, at the plenum, and then we also go exterior to understand what the external temperatures are around the facility. That's all done through a LoRaN, which is like a Wi-Fi inside the building, and then we backhaul with a cellular signal, which then ultimately goes through the network and ends up on our cloud to feed the application that we present in front of the growers. Lastly, is we've integrated with a number of existing providers, so they have sensors in facilities, the newer facilities, they're operated, they're integrated, Techmark and IVI being a couple of examples. We now pull data directly from them to feed the information that we're looking for to do our machine learning and AI work around predicting spoilage and early rot detection inside of a bin. So that's where we introduce, in this case, the rot detection unit that we've introduced into the field. So it's a harsh environment, as I mentioned. There's a humidification wall. There's a sense of the humidity that's in this particular bin. It's high. This is one in southern Alberta. And they have spinners to introduce even more moist air. You can see on our sensor here that water is actually dripping. So those sensors are IP67, if anybody's curious. That means they're watertight, and only the sensor itself sits below the housing, which ultimately protects the electronics. Obviously, electronics and water don't mix well, so it's imperative that that boundary exists for that product. In this particular case, our handheld indicated that that venue is at 100% humidity. Why is the humidity so high? Potatoes are 80% water. If you can maintain the humidity levels such that the water loss or respiration is minimized, then ultimately you minimize the loss of weight, which is ultimately one of the values that a grower gets paid on and they deliver at the end of the storage season. So this is what we're doing with respect to our RDAR grant. We're looking to evolve the rot sensing that we initiated a year ago, again through a grant that we received. Now we're expanding that. Our objective is to put 100 bins in play with rot sensors and another 20 or 25 bins with an additional gas and volatile sensor measurements. So we do the combination of both. This is just a quick example. On the top, on the left-hand side, the bottom is our original sensor, which is for rot. On the top, we've added the array of sensors for incremental gas detection that is typical in a rotting situation. In the middle, you'll see the initial one on the left, the new one on the right, and on the far right, you'll see that the beta unit that we introduced has the sensors hanging below the box, which then houses the power system as well as the wireless connectivity back to our base. So a quick case study in terms of how this is beneficial. So 2 years ago, so not this current storage season, but the previous one, this example presented itself. In early December, we started to see our rot sensor start to pick up. So there was a slow ramp up indicating that there was something going on in the facility. 42 days later, mid-January, was the first sign that a grower could smell something going on. So arguably, we were 42 days ahead of when he otherwise would have seen it, which gives him an advance in terms of things that he may choose to do, whether to ship early, whether to take on a mitigation strategy. A mitigation strategy in this case would simply be to reduce some of the humidification that happens, blow drier air through the pile, try and dry out that rot that's taking place. And then in this particular case, as a result of taking that strategy, it plateaued, stayed solid. He then reached a point where he was comfortable, went back to a normal practice with the humidity ranges he wanted to use, and then continued on through the season. So he's able to, in this case, deliver the highest yield possible. So he got paid for his weight. He also gets paid for the amount of time he stores the product, and then the quality in this case ended up being above average, so he had also that bonus aspect on top of what he ended up delivering. So again, a result or a database decision versus something that was intuitive or subjective previously. Last slide that I'll show you is this indication here. It's not the greatest with respect to some of the scaling. We try to put everything on one chart. What you'll see, the blue top line is humidity. You'll see that it's basically saturated, running at 98 to 100%. And then you'll see on the bottom here some of the CO2 levels as well as temperature. You can't really see based on scale how the temperature was introduced into the facility about 50, 52 degrees and slowly declined over the storage such that it put it into a dormant state. The black bar is when the grower identified that there was a problem through normal practices, which he started to smell a problem. What we then looked at was through machine learning and taking into consideration the various data inputs was the green line, which is basically an indication of rot. So our objective now is to look at existing collected data using sources of truth to ultimately end up with a machine learning model that can allow us to predict a rot risk potential in a given storage. So I'd like to thank our investors, our grant providers, specifically RDAR in this case, who's been very supportive with the 2 grants that we've achieved. And then Quattro Ventures. I know some of you may be familiar with Emily Ford. Emily and the Quattro facility has been extremely supportive for the initiatives we have, and we have access to all of their bins on the farm. So with that, Stellar Insights, we're helping growers and processors improve reliability, volume, and quality of their post-harvest yields. Thank you very much.
Great job, Terry. Very impressive. From a commercialization standpoint, what's the barrier for the grower? Because it seems to be like, this totally makes sense. If I was growing potatoes, I should have this. What's the barrier?
Like a lot of things in market, there's 2 that are not related to the technology. So the technology advancement, I would say, is continuing. We've seen huge amount of changes in terms of capability of doing things with sensors, just picking things up. And now with AI and machine learning, the ability to take it to the next level exists. The challenge in this industry is behavioral. Not a lot of people want to making changes, and when they do, it takes a while. So the cycle is an annual cycle. People like to try it before they actually step in. So for us, it's about getting the influencers in the space, the growers that other growers look to as people that understand that they have a big operation, they're progressive in their thinking, they ultimately want to go forward. So that's by far the biggest. And the last would be commercial. I mean, one thing, with some of the sensors that we've identified, they're way too expensive to commercially launch. There's just no margin left for the grower. And so there's a sensitivity there with a lot of things we've seen where pricing and costing at the early stages is a barrier.
Let's give the CEO of Stellar Insights, Terry Sidorik, a big round of applause. As I mentioned, part of what makes Alberta's potato industry really successful, of course, is the access to irrigation. And this makes water management one of the most important elements of the production system. A recent project led by Alberta Irrigation Districts Association and WaterSmart served to optimize water management in the South Saskatchewan River Basin. Here to tell us about the important initiative is Kim Sturgis, the founder and CEO of WaterSmart Solutions Limited, and who has also been named, this is pretty cool, one of the top 100 influential women in Canada. How about that, everybody? Let's go!
Well, thanks for the opportunity to come and speak to so many of you. It's amazing to see so many of you here today. My brief history, how did I get involved in a bit of a serial entrepreneur and built up and sold a couple of businesses, and I've reached a point in my life where I said, I want to do something valuable and important in the world, and water's my passion. Water people are born, we're not made, and we have water in the soul, and so I founded WaterSmart, and it was based on the premise of the Water for Life strategy. And one of the 3 pillars is water for sustainable economy. And nobody was really looking at that in 2004 and 2005. So I founded WaterSmart to look at how to improve water management through better practices and technologies. My business colleagues thought I was completely mad. What an idiot to invest, put your house at risk again for something that has no value, because water had no value. All of that changed in August of 2006 when the Southern Basin was closed to new allocation. And that's when our work got started. So really excited to talk about this, and so thankful to RDAR for this. We're going to step way back up into the big picture here about why water is so important in agriculture. So Water is a shared resource, and basically it's how do we slice the pie? We have water for environment, and we've got water for food, and we've got water for energy and industry, and water for people. And of course, we have to share. Water doesn't recognize the boundaries, and so we need to share that water with our neighbors next door, in this case in Saskatchewan. And that's a very important thing about how much we need to deliver 50% of our headwater, the water of naturalized flow, to Saskatchewan every year. And that's a limiting factor in the south. So how do we slice up that pie? It's always about a competition for that resource. Water's really different from all of the other resources that we deal with. It's hugely emotional. Talk to anybody that lost their house in the flood, Dr. Chalik over there. Ask anybody, who lost, their crops and their farms during drought, and they'll tell you just how personal it is. And there's a lot of competing interest in that too. And in that it's because it's so personal. I put my personal things in through here because it is such a personal thing. It's also fluid. So we have the same amount of water as we had, when the Earth was formed. It just changes what kind of form that it's in. And so it is a cycle, and everything is connected. Groundwater does move differently in the basin, so that's something to keep an eye on. But the main thing to remember is it's fluid and everything is connected. What you do in one place impacts another place. So what drove us to do this sort of collaborative work that we're going to talk about here today? It all came started as a result of the drought. In that 2000-2001 drought, there was the way that the system moved through that. It was getting everybody together and having a talk about what are we going to do to solve the problem. And that collaborative approach was something that appeared to work and was comfortable for people, and that's the basis on which we began our work. The other thing, though, driving this work very much is the climate is changing. One of the things that we see, and it's not just something that we're starting to see now, like, if we look at what the variability in water flows has been, naturalized flows has been across, this is in the South Sask Basin, but all the basins look the same. We've had much more variability in previous years. Things have been pretty stable since about 1932, last time we had a real major flood, until just recently. And most of our infrastructure has been built within that time frame. So our infrastructure is not really set up for the kind of extremes that we're going to see. So that that's a very important thing in terms of putting that factor into our work. So why, again, is this really important? Global water resources, there's only so much water. It's not created, it's not destroyed. It is what it is. And if we look at what the amount of water is that's in the world, it's about 11,500 cubic kilometers of water that can annually cycle through. If you use more than 11,500 cubic kilometers of the water, you're actually drawing down your water supply, and it's not sustainable. So that's really important. It's not a big. I know what a cubic. I can imagine what a cubic kilometer is. Like it's something that you can think about. The other really important thing that this slide shows is how much of that water is used in agriculture. And the total withdrawals around the whole world, it's in that 70% range. The actual amount consumed, so the amount of water, that 11,500 cubic kilometers of water, 90% of it is consumed in agriculture. 90% of it. And so we start looking at what these trade-offs are. It's big. And the big question then becomes, it's not, what did I do? Thank you. The big question is not really, do we have enough water? It's, do we have enough water to grow the food? The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization has made this prediction, that 70% of the more food production globally is going to be needed to support our population, growing population. But more importantly for Canada, the largest contribution is going to be on increasing agricultural output on existing agricultural land. So it's what we've got, and we got to do better with what we've got, and we have been here in Alberta. But if we look globally, and to me this is the real challenge, the policy challenge for Alberta, these are the circles around the top 10 water exports. Water is exported in food, by the way. That's how water gets moved around. It's in food. And if we look at those 10 places, Canada is the only one where we are going to be able to see an increase in yields over the next 30 years. And that, as an Albertan, I take that very seriously, that's a moral right of ours to be able to contribute to that. And the good news is that we can, and we are. And this is why I'm very passionate about the work that we do. And it's this nexus, they call it the water, energy, food nexus, and that combining with the people. How are we going to make this work? If we just quick look at Alberta, interestingly, the water consumptive, water use has not changed very much over the last 15 years. People have, especially the irrigation sector, has gotten extremely efficient, wrung a lot of efficiency out. So we've stayed about the same, but 67% of the water in Alberta is consumed in agriculture, and most of that is in irrigation. 85% of it is in southern Alberta, is where that's that number in Alberta is 85%. So you start to think about that competition now as we try and increase our population here to whatever the forecast is at the moment, 7 million, 10 million. You know, double the population of our province. How are we going to, you're going to start to see competition amongst these, especially as we start to think about industries coming in like data centers and hydrogen. That are very consumptive of that. So that industry competition is important as well. So that's kind of the background of why this is really important. And so the innovation that we started in 2005 is to look at stakeholder engagement with an adaptive decision support tool. So it's people getting, number one, bring together the people that know the watershed best. You guys know the watershed the best. And having people in the room that can actually have a conversation about the trade-offs that need to be made is very important. So these are just an example of the breadth and range of the folks that we've been able to get engaged and involved in the South Saskatchewan project, supported by RDAR. And the Athabasca project, which we're hoping we can continue to build on. And we've just finished the North Saskatchewan project as well, which RDAR also supported, so we really appreciate that. But you can see the range of people that get involved. The second thing you need is a strong base of data and tools. So we've used a tool called Oasis. It is the tool we've been able to work with our partner company, Hazen, for many years using this tool. And it's really the very best data. So it's taken the very best data, and Alberta Environment's produced wonderful data over the years and kept up with that. With the working group participants and being able to use this model interactively to allow these conversations to happen in real time. And it's quite powerful to sit in a room and watch people negotiate that based on these tools and the result performance measures that allow people to determine whether things are good or working. And then the notion of working collaboratively. The biggest thing coming out of this is the relationships amongst people, so that when you get into a situation where you do have a challenge, like the drought of the 2024, we were able to bring those people together very, very quickly to allow them to be able to have conversations and make those trade-offs. And that's how that whole water sharing agreement process came together, because of these relationships. So this is a Saskatchewan operating model. I won't go into this. but happy to share more on that. And the history of it, just again briefly, not that you can necessarily see that, but that we did, this has been going on for 20 years. Started out as a research project in 2005 and leading through to the development of these models, that have led to roadmaps, which I'm going to show you next. And this did, say, in the 2024 timeframe, support the water sharing agreement. So it's something very practical that you can use. It's a decision support tool. It's not an operational support tool. It's a decision support tool that allows people to have intelligent conversations amongst each other. Just to give an example, and my colleague here, we can be outside, have copies of these roadmaps so that you don't have to squint at it here. But what came out of this roadmap in the South Saskatchewan was actually very specific recommendations to say, if you want to have a resilient, we can have a resilient watershed in southern Alberta for 100 years, for generations. But we have to build storage. The issue in the south is storage. We have to build storage. And this identified, based on that discussion with 150 working group members, identified what those priorities should be. Upper Bow, Airmore, Belly, and Ardley, and that will allow us to increase our irrigation footprint as well in the south. And there are a number of other of these recommendations. I'm happy to, we'll show you, you can get a snapshot of what the whole report is, but it's a very clear roadmap. And similarly on the North Saskatchewan, the issue in the North Saskatchewan, interestingly, is all about quality. They've got lots of storage upstream. It's owned by TransAlta, but that storage, if well used, the North Saskatchewan can support itself for many generations to come. And now the next step is to move, and thank you to RDAR for supporting that one, the next step is to move farther north and look at the now combined Athabasca Peace Lesser Slave Basin, where they are now facing some very serious issues with drought conditions. Interestingly enough, you think there's lots of water up there, they're in severe drought, especially as they try and increase the amount of industry there. So come and see us. The one thing that did come out of this, this will be my last slide, the one thing that did come out of this, our good friend Larry Kohlmeyer, at the end of 2022, he said, Kim, this is all delightful work and it's all great. Tell me what 10 things to do. Just tell me what 10 things to do. So based on this work that we've done, this collaborative work, these are the things that were identified. And the good news is the check marks are where things are actively moving forward on that. The Bow Basin, the Airmore, the MD of Acadia Special Areas Irrigation Project, which is going through the system right now, another 108,000 acres in the Red Deer Basin. Lots of heat units, lots of great soils, lots of excitement around that. Ardley and Belly, and all of those are moving, the North Sask project and the North Water Management in the North. So all of these things are moving. The one last thing I would say, how groundwater is critical. One absolutely critical is developing cabinet-approved water management plans for all of the basins. The thing we learned in the North Sask, it's really hard to assess environmental base flows when you haven't done a water management plan and determined what those environmental base flows should be, and that's what we have in the South that's really, really helpful. So good kudos to the Alberta government for following through on these. It's been really rewarding. So with that, I would say thank you very much for being interested in our work. We're very passionate about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. I appreciate it.
Okay.
You're good, yeah. Very interesting. Water, critical for the future of Alberta agriculture. I'm now going to call up Deputy Minister Jason Hale with Agriculture and Irrigation, and we're going to have a bit of a quick chat up here.
Want everybody to see you perfect.
Okay, so give us your best R.J. Segerson story. No, just kidding.
Oh, I could.
This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this. So, get to travel across the country, as do you, talking to some of your deputy minister colleagues. What makes, in your mind, what makes agriculture in Alberta maybe special or different than some of the other provinces in the country?
Well, in Alberta, we're leaders. We have over 50, just under 50% of the total cattle herd in Canada is in Alberta. Our grains, we produce the majority of the grains in Canada. A lot of them come from Alberta. As I mentioned, potatoes, we're number one in potatoes. Honey, we're the largest honey producing province. There's irrigation, we lead on irrigation in southern Alberta. We're moving that around the province. There's just so many positives in agriculture in Alberta, and it comes from our producers. It's not the government telling the producers what to do, it's the producers taking that innovation. Kim talked about the irrigation. You look at where irrigation has came from in the last 40 years. It was all flood irrigation. Now we're all the way to low pressure pivots. We're using the resources we have in such a positive and productive way that we're leaders in agriculture.
You just look at it in my lifetime, and John, think about hand moves, right? And we went to wheel lines, and that was we have come so far, especially from a water efficiency standpoint for sure. In other jurisdictions and other provinces, and even federally, what we always hear is we got to get agriculture on the map. We got to make sure they know about agriculture and the economic opportunity and the driver and all these kinds of things. Where does agriculture sit with this government?
Oh, agriculture is key. Everybody knows that Alberta, the oil and gas and what happens, in the province and the funding it provides, but everybody has to eat. The guys that work in the oil and gas field, all of our families need to eat. It's the backbone of our province. That's why people came to Alberta, was for the opportunity here, and then we found oil and gas. When we travel around the country and around the world, the minister and I were promoting agriculture, promoting what the province has. Alberta is so well thought of. It's our reputation precedes us everywhere we go. They want our product. They know that we have the sustainability programs in place, the clean air, the clean land, the clean water. Our producers provide such a top quality product that they know where Alberta's on the map, and we work very closely across Canada, with our agriculture departments, with the federal government. So it's not all Alberta. We team up, we partner, and we share that knowledge and the work that we do.
Well, we're not satisfied. We don't want to rest on our laurels. How do we make that position even stronger within the province and position with government?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's telling our story. So many times you hear, in different, different outcomes or different settings, we're ruining the planet with agriculture. Our cows are burping too much. We're polluting the water. We're polluting the air. We're not taking care of the soil, and that's. Part of that problem is that I'm a producer myself. I'm a fourth generation ag producer. I've got two sons that are in ag. I've got two grandkids, they love being out on the ranch. So it's us telling the story. We haven't done a good enough job telling what we do and why we do it so well. And I think that's starting to, we're working on that. We're doing that. So we have more work to do.
There's always talks about money. It sort of drives the bus. We saw the federal ag minister this week mention they're going to start working on the next ag policy framework. From Alberta's perspective, what is the province pushing for?
More federal money. We less provincial money, more federal money. That's what we need.
I could go to Saskatchewan and be interviewing Bill Grewal, the deputy there, and he would have the exact same answer.
Well, we talk at our FPT meetings about we want more federal money and less provincial across the country. But no, it's that partnership, and it's key because we know in Alberta we can't do it on our own. The other provinces we work with, they can't do it on their own. So we have to team up. And one thing that we are pushing for is let the province decide where we need to spend the money. Some of the programs we've had are very, very popular. The ROUT program, Resilient Agricultural Landscape. I mean, it was sold out in minutes or hours, or we didn't have enough funding there. But we have some ability to move money around throughout the buckets, but we want more of that ability. Let us. It's different when we're talking, fish farms in Eastern Canada to orchards in BC. There's a lot of difference. We need to have the ability and the flexibility to move that money around.
Obviously, Canada's an exporting nation. Trade very important to Alberta. We had some movement here in the last week when it comes to trade potentially with China on the beef front. Aquaculture, not a real big deal here, but definitely canola is. At the same time, the U.S. market's also important. So how do producers in the room and those that are in agribusiness, so what are your thoughts on some of the tariff headwinds? There's a question for
boy,
you.
You wouldn't believe it. Well, I know you can believe how much time that's taken up in the last since the last January, that discussion. But again, we do a lot of work expanding our markets through, the minister and I have been to South Korea, Japan, Mexico, Vietnam, the Philippines. He's heading to Dubai next week. It's expanding those markets. As everybody says, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. The United States is very important to us. I mean, they're our closest, our biggest trading partner. We have to foster that relationship, but we have to look elsewhere. It's great to see China open the border to some of our products. We're still getting, through the gist of exactly what that is, but it's that ability to move our products around the world, and that comes back to that sustainability and telling our story about how good our products are, and there's so much that we work on, the logistics, the supply chains, the ports, loading grain off the West Coast and some of the issues there, and rail issues, and there's a lot that we deal with, but we do our best. We're not perfect, but it's important.
Just curious, because I think sometimes we sort of tell ourselves stories in terms of how we think those customers afar think about our products. When you go to a place like South Korea or Singapore, Japan, all the different, the minister's going to be in Dubai next week. What do they say about product from Alberta? Like, what's the message?
We want more and we want it cheaper.
So get on it.
Yeah. And we say, we want to send you more and charge you more money. So it's, they love our product. They do. They absolutely love our products. But again, it comes down to logistics. When we were in the Philippines, talking to a company that buys a lot of grain, they're like, okay, we want more, we want you to send our grain. But the problem is it may take 30 days to get to our ports, or it may take 60 days. They don't know, and so it's tough for them to build it in their margins when they don't know how long it's going to take. So there's some work that we need to do, on that front too.
Does some of our logistics, and we've had labor unrest, we've had some challenges. Does that, the ability to, if I'm going to buy product from Alberta or from Canada, I want to know that I'm going to get it when I need it. Do those kind of things come up at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we hear that all the time. Rail, when we send a lot of stuff to the south with rail to the coast. When there are those labor unrests, that really puts a damper on things, because we can't supply that consistent supply of our products. When I do know of a company they were shipping pork with planes. Because they had contracts they had to fulfill, and they knew they had to get it there. They didn't want to lose the contract, so we work closely with the feds when those issues come up, and try to come up with some solutions.
So if you could seed one moonshot over the next two budgets, what would it be? What's like a moonshot for our industry?
Well, if we're talking federal budget, it's more rail lines. We need more rail lines. And I don't, I shouldn't say too much about it because I don't know a lot. But I think, we hear of the issues on the ports when we're loading ships, with grain, that when it starts to rain, they can't. Well, if you can build, an MLB baseball stadium with a movable roof, you think maybe we could figure out somehow to, build a roof over some of our ports. There's things that we really need to look at. And I think it's expanding the ability, giving us the ability as producers and a province to access those markets.
The average attention span of humans now is 7 seconds, which is absolutely terrifying. Research takes time, and we're a very outcome-based society, and I want it now, right? I can't wait. I don't want to wait, and I choose not to wait. How do we make sure that we are committed to something like research, which the funding today, the political powers that may be in power today maybe not be tomorrow. Like, you may not see the fruits of that, right? It takes a little bit longer term vision. So how do we stay committed through facilities like RDAR to make sure we got research programs long term?
Yeah, and I think that's, we have to continuously pass that torch. It's that message that we have to continue to give, to our government, the other governments, the producers. And I've been the deputy for 3.5 years, and, government does not move fast. You get there, it's like, okay, well, let's, right? I have an ADM here, John Conrad. Okay, John, let's do that. It's like, well, what do you mean we can't do it tomorrow? Kind of thing. It takes time, but we have to, Kim mentioned, that huge drought in 2001. And then we saw it again in 21 and 23. Those droughts, and we talk about storage. We have to build more storage. And everybody says, well, it's going to take 20 years to build a dam. Well, darn it, in 2001, after that huge drought, that's 25 years ago. We would have had a dam built if they would have continued with that narrative. We have to make it happen. So, through our department and our minister and the government, we know how important storage is. That's what, she mentioned Ardley, she mentioned Earmore, Belly River, those things that we have to continuously work at, and we can't forget about that. And that's not just us as departments or the politicians. That's the producers, the researchers. Everybody has to. We don't let us forget, and don't let the next wave of politicians or bureaucrats, or producers. We have to let that message continue on.
I think some of your colleagues across the country really do, and I mean this sincerely, look at Alberta as like, okay, what's Alberta up to over there? Like, what's going on? We tend to do ruffle a few feathers across the country from time to time. Where can Alberta lead a national agricultural file, and what does that leadership look like?
Well, we're seeing it. With our business risk management programs, and disease management, foreign animal disease. Like, we really started to push a few years ago on a vaccine bank for foot and mouth disease. We do a lot of work on African swine fever, irrigation. We are leaders in water conservation and in that efficiency gains through not just irrigation, but through our canola crushing plants, our beef packing plants, the producers, the water that they're using. So it's we have to continue to lead. So we have our federal, provincial, territorial meetings. There's different levels. There's minister meetings, there's deputy minister meetings, there's ADM meetings, and we take an active role, and we don't just sit back and let things happen. The minister and I have talked a lot about it, and when we get to these meetings, we stand up. We're the first ones to speak. Like, we have to lead the charge because we feel we know what it's going to take through the learnings and the research that's been done and what we know where we're going. RDAR is very important in moving forward. And, we work very closely with them. What are they hearing? What are the farmers telling them they need? We take that message to the federal government and work with our other provinces.
Yeah, okay, we're just about done here. What edge does Alberta gain from having RDAR when, people might be aware of this, but other provinces don't have this kind of a structure. So what advantages does it give Alberta?
Yeah, a huge advantage because it's farmer-led, and that you mentioned the leveraging of those dollars. So everybody knows, everybody hears about the budget. We don't have a lot of money. Oil's down. There's a lot of pressures on the government. So when we have someone like RDAR taking that initiative to get money from different producer groups and the industry to help them fund these projects that are beneficial not just to our province, but beneficial to our whole country and the other provinces. That's key. It's that leading edge and taking that initial step. There's going to be other provinces do this because they're all in the same financial places that Alberta is. We're going to see more and more of these systems.
Okay, ready to finish off with a bit of a lightning round? Yeah. Okay, quick answers here. Ready? Here we go. One market we're underplaying is. Oh, look at that. We stumped him.
That's enough.
Woo!
Underplaying pork.
Pork. Awesome. Okay, a regulatory change that would save the most time.
PMRA.
Amen. The most underrated Alberta ag innovation is?
Irrigation.
A partnership we should copy from another sector is? Ooh, gee, we're getting deep here.
You know what? We're leaders. I think they need to take some of our learnings.
See what he just did there? It was like a switcheroo.
I used to be a politician too, so.
That is good. And finally, currently on my playlist is?
Oh, look, you got to have a little Willie Nelson.
Ha! There we go. Let's give a big round of applause for Deputy Minister Hale. Okay, before we wrap up, what we're going to do is a bit of a farmer panel. So the farmers that were voluntold, if you can come up here. We've got Doug Ray out of Irricana, Tash Alexander out of Brownvale Peace Country, and Angela Cumlin from Jumping Pound, Cochrane.
Okay. You don't need to touch the microphones.
How are we doing? Doing good?
Good.
Okay, awesome stuff. Well, an important part of RDAR is the farmer-led approach that we've heard about. So I think it's important that we have a farmer panel here as well. Let's give them a big round of applause. Okay, Doug, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your operation.
Yeah, I knew I should have sat on the other end.
Yep.
We, at Ray Ranch, my grandfather broke prairie sod in 1910, and we've been there ever since. We're still on much of that original land base. We converted our mixed farming operation in late 1990s to a ranching operation, so we're running a beef operation with cows, cow-calf, yearlings. It changes. We're trying to be flexible to match the resources we have, but tame pastures all summer and use some stockpiled native grass in the early winter, and then currently we've got cows and bred heifers on standing corn and calves that we kept over, and some more heifers on swath grazing. So we try and take the cattle to the feed. We graze 365 days a year. We had rain this year, so my hay shed's full, and we don't intend to use it.
What are you doing with all the money you're making this year? No, just kidding.
Paying taxes.
Angela, tell us about your operation.
Myself and my husband Matt own and operate Lazy J Cattle Company in the foothills, a half an hour west of Calgary, and we've been there for 8 years. But we are fifth generation on his family's ranch, and we operate with a combination of cow-calf, grass yearlings, and custom cattle. And similar to Doug, we try and operate with work with nature, not against her, and so we graze the majority of the year with various methods, and currently our cows are all still grazing with just supplement on pasture, and we are developing calves on swaths for the first time. It's a new thing to try. And we've structured our business with a mission to develop an economically sound business that promotes health that starts at the soil level and travels through the plants, the livestock, the food we produce, and then also transfers into the people who work with us.
Awesome. You know, the amount of work and the change I think that has happened from a grazing perspective and what ranchers are doing today versus just a short time ago, I think is pretty amazing. Tasha, tell us about your operation.
Hi, I'm Tasha Alexander. I farm with my husband up in the beautiful Peace region. I went there to work for a year or two, but that was 20-some years ago. I never left. Once you drink the water, you don't go too far from the Peace. We run a grain farm. We actually don't have animals, so we're kind of boring compared to these two. We grow a variety of grain crops, barley, wheat, oats, pulse crops. Peas are kind of the main thing up in the Peace, and then we grow canola as well. Our goal too is to make our farm sustainable. My husband and me both worked full-time, and his parents had a very small farm, and we had big plans, and we've made them happen. We both farm full-time. We've taken on enough acres to keep us more than busy, and now have 2 boys just kind of starting into the farm. And our goal is to leave the land better than when we started farming it, so it can continue to grow many crops for many generations.
You know, Deputy Minister Hale talked about telling our story, and all 3 producers here did a fantastic job of really telling a story, more than just, hey, we have, you know, crops, we have cows. They did a fantastic job of really embracing the story around their farm and the why of what they're doing. So congratulations to all 3 of you for doing that. So Tash, let's start with you on the end. What kind of research have you pursued or applied on farm, and what motivated you to do that kind of work? Because it takes time, and you got limited resources, so why?
I think coming from the ag retail sector, I've always had a curiosity about research. And so then once you have your own farm, let's put some of these things to real world practice. We do many variety trials. We've done plot to farm through Alberta Grains. And then anything we question or can think of, we want to test. That's how you learn and grow. If you're not changing or open to new ideas, sometimes our research is to not change anything if nothing else is better. But I'm very motivated because that's how you can learn and grow and try new things that can be successful for your operation.
Good stuff. Angela?
I would say that the majority of the research that we do on our own ranch is just trial and error of our own. We have participated in privately funded trials before, but we really like producer-led trials more, similar to how RDAR is structured. We just found that the privately led trials were more what the researchers wanted to find out as opposed to the ranchers and what was useful. So a lot of our research is just what we want to know. Like Tasha said, we'll just put it to the test. We have an on-farm certified scale, and so we can weigh cattle and see how they're performing in different scenarios and just apply that, and it allows us to have a really quick turnaround on making decisions. So if something worked well, we can implement it on a large scale very quickly.
Doug?
Yeah, I think thinking about research and innovation, I think probably some might call us early adopters. We're always looking for that next edge that's out there to do things a little differently, a little better. So in terms of research, we're probably looking around for those early adopter ideas and the innovation side of it, trying to figure out what might work. The margins are thin enough, you can't make a lot of mistakes. So it's tough to take a wild-ass idea and risk losing too much on it. So you gotta pick your spots, I think, pretty carefully. But we spent quite a bit of time the last 10 years trying to figure out our soils better, to understand carbon, to understand soil health. At one time, we thought we were going to be great carbon sequesters and get paid for that. That's smoke that you
Still waiting for the check.
every time you go to grab it, it's not there. But so I think that would be one thing. We've done a lot of work with our livestock to try and make those cattle as well adapted to what we do and us to what they can do, so that we get as much efficiency and productivity there too.
So Doug, how do you collect? Because one of the issues here, you mentioned it, is it's different in agriculture because we have one crop a year, right? We've got one cycle per year. Something like poultry may be a little bit different, but we don't. We only put in, say, 40 crops in a year or in our lifetime, and we don't want to screw one of those up because we're trying something that's kind of cool and sounds sexy. So we got to collect the data and interpret it to really have data-based decision making. So how do you collect some of that data on your farm when you're doing some of that research?
Well, when we started into managed grazing, where we're rotating cattle every 2 or 3 days, basically year-round, we've been doing that for 25 years. Foothills Forage and Grazing Association was a great resource, because you could go to that room and find other guys that were thinking along the same line. And so to have that wherever you are, that camaraderie of some fellow producers, some people you can tap into, some mentors you can trust them to give you the real goods. Having that community is, I think, in agriculture, whatever your product is a big advantage.
Yeah, you're not talking about the coffee shop. You're talking about like actual, like a peer.
It was more the boardroom, and if we could, if she could get us through the board stuff, so we get the stuff we really want to talk about.
Angela, how about you?
Yes, data collection. I think we, in the beginning, wanted to collect all of the data. Both my husband and I are kind of nerds, and we have lots of university years, and we wanted to collect all the data, and so we learned really quickly that you need to just collect data you're going to use, because it can become very tiresome to try and keep track of it all and not use it. So how do we collect data? It depends on how we plan to use it. So.
Okay, so on that note, because from an efficiency standpoint, that makes sense. How do you know what data you may need in, say, like 10 years?
Good question. I don't know.
Okay, no, just curious.
I think, from a perspective of economics, the things that we are collecting, and I hope will be useful in 10 years and are certainly useful now, are things like how much forage did we harvest from an individual field every year? And if we can see that number trend is going up or going down, it tells us about the health of the pasture. We don't necessarily soil test every field every year because we operate on a lot of native ground, but we do dig holes and we keep track of what the soil looks like. I think that's important for trend lines.
Absolutely. Tasha?
For data collection, I think she has a good point that you can get so much data, but technology really is our friend. I feel like if I didn't rely on digital field mapping and different programs, I would struggle to have the data. Also, the fact you can attach a picture and pin it to your location in your field, and I can go back and look at that years later. I feel like technology has really helped me map and compare. It will break down different, I know for field trials I can do a lot of number crunching, aside from doing your own layouts and things like that. So I do heavily rely on technology.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times you'd go to a conference and you'd hear a futurist on stage that would say, the farm of the future, the ranch of the future is going to have a data scientist on their team, and no, they're not. We have it now, and it's artificial. It's artificial intelligence and some of those tools. So, Tasha, what advice would you give researchers when considering what to pursue and research to kind of pursue and apply for? And how can producers and researchers work together more effectively to jump ahead here?
I think the key for success is going to be collaboration. The more industry producers and researchers are talking, the better the research can be. I think it's really important to consider who your funding partners are and what their priorities are, to speak with them, or priorities are usually listed on websites. I like that RDAR is producer-led, as are commission groups that are often funding partners. So working with the farmers that are involved in that and looking at the priorities. And the real key to bring change is going to be collaboration, to have discussions between the three partners. And I guess considering the long-term impact of your research, it has to translate to field. It can't just be in a lab. If it's going to be, come down to benefit the producers at the field level, that's the key to having successful projects.
Yeah, getting that researcher out of the lab onto the ground at the farm gate level.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of those comments. I think the more involved that the researchers can be with a farm, even if you have a farm that's hosting your project, don't consider them a host, consider them a partner. Have them involved in your research question. Does this question help them? Is it applicable? I'll give kind of an example. I have a friend who is working on the beef code and recently revealed to me that she had never been to a branding, and she's working on the code for how we manage pain in calves at brandings. And I thought, this is a real problem. She's a veterinarian and she has a PhD and she's extremely intelligent, but she just didn't have the real world experience of what she's writing code for and has done research projects in. I thought, you need to not just come to one branding, you need to come to a whole bunch. So yeah, greater collaboration, and consider us to be your partners and not just somebody that you chat with now and then.
You cannot write that code until you have a prairie oyster. That's the rule. Doug?
Yeah, I would agree that the researcher has to understand our world, the wide range of things you're dealing with. It's not just as simple as, let's put this data in a box so we can get the tightest coefficient of variance. We don't work in that world. It didn't rain this year, so the parameters are different. Or we got a lot of rain in September, so the parameters are different, So they, as Angela says, they need to understand that context. And, if it's going to take 10 years to come up with some sort of useful answer, well, then the question is, what's my challenge in 10 years?
Yeah.
You have to have some forward thinking. You have to get out of the box of this year's margin that you're trying to make money on, and get your head up and look forward long enough that you have that dam and the water resources that you said you needed down the road. It's a mix of doing all the details today, but keeping in the grazing world, we're trying to protect our grass 3 or 4 years down the road. Yeah. So we know what we do now has a long-term impact. So you have to keep that horizon out there somewhere. Thank goodness my nephew came back. He can make a spreadsheet dance. I understand what it does. I can't make it dance. But so we've got a lot of good numbers. He should be the one here talking because he knows the numbers. The new innovation on our place is we've got some GPS collars on some heifers.
Nice.
And he moved fence from his office. Didn't drive an hour and a quarter to get there, and then spend an hour and a quarter. He just moved it from his office, and be damned, it worked. And I wasn't hands-on with it, but I'll tell you, he's excited about getting more and doing more. So that tells me he's a detail guy who doesn't want to wreck. So this thing's got promise. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great example because, it solves a labor issue, makes him more efficient as the rancher. There's a lot of things that value in ROI that comes out of that. And what we heard from our panel here today is that collaboration. right? It's one thing to, you know, when it comes to priorities, and we need to solve problems, right? Research just can't be about doing cool stuff. It needs to be solving problems that actual producers need solutions for, and to me, that's what RDAR is really all about. So let's give our farmer panel, rancher panel, a big round of applause. Okay, I'm going to ask for some concluding statements here before we all jump out of the hall and engage with all of those projects. I'm going to ask Dr. Mark Redmond, CEO of RDAR, for his words.
Thank you, Sean. Doug was very kind enough to host a number of us out at his operation this summer, and we actually did see Tim Ray making those numbers dance, and he can look at a bale and say, that is, 20 head for half a day, or whatever the numbers are. So that's really important. Doug, you did disappoint me, though, in terms of the virtual fencing that you're engaged with our off-calf program. That was supplied to you as part of an ongoing initiative rollout, and you are a great researcher. We appreciate that. If those others are intrigued in terms of want to be early adopters, off-calf is going to be opening, sell, right? Off-calf is going to be opening with the virtual fencing this year. So the limits for the producers in the room, $100,000 this year, and RDAR will cover 85% of the costs of these early adopters. So get it while you can. The program's going to be good for a couple more years. Because Deputy Minister Hale is going to be asking the feds for more money, but right now it's capped at 2028. So this has been a great start to our afternoon. I actually began the morning, we've been here for quite a while, saying two factors really impressed me with RDAR. And if I begin to sound like the Prime Minister, I'm stealing. Passion, and passion for everything that's done. And I see that in spades in this audience. And I also say gratitude, because it's a rumor the Canadians aren't grateful. We are extremely grateful for your engagement, for the researchers' engagement, for you coming here. Thank you, Sean, for the hosting of the event. You really tied everything together. Thank you to our presenters this afternoon from our private sector. It's great hearing about Cellar, a very early investment. Great to support Kim and WaterSmart. I'm now smarter in terms of thinking about how much of our water is moved around in food. I always think about strawberries coming from California or buying their water. I forget about sending ours south. Deputy Minister Hale, thank you for your comments. Send more money. And our researchers, farmer producers, Doug, Angela, Tasha. This day wouldn't have been possible without all the hard work of Lydia, Richard, Caitlin, Tanushi, and the communications team. They have made this a great event. I'm going to get out of the way now and allow you to network. I'm really looking forward to seeing the presentations and seeing some of the dollars put to work. Our board, thank you to you, and you're going to be wandering around quizzing everybody. I think it's a great opportunity. That passion and gratitude is going to allow our producers to be one thing, and that's leaders. Doug, you say you're an early adopter. No, you're a leader. He's too busy talking over there to gain the kudos. But thank you for that. RDAR 2, the board has had a change of leadership, and I'm actually, Dr. Chalk would say, you never gave it to me, the last word, but we have a new chair of RDAR, Darcy Hill-Gartner. Would you like to come up and move everybody on to the next stage of the day? Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. So Darcy Hill-Gartner, I'm the new incoming chair to RDAR, and I'm excited to be in the role. I'm not new to the board, but I'm new to the position. So I want to thank you all for coming. It's amazing to see the attendance here today. This event is continuing to grow in attendance, and even the weather might hold. So we usually are trying to freeze you out or blizzard or something. So, it's fantastic. Obviously, if you heard today, we're operating in some, a new paradigm, a new world order of trade. And, if we in Alberta and Canada want to stay ahead of that, we need research and innovation. And I'd like to think that us at RDAR are helping to lead that, to develop those new skills, those new areas, those new things, that as a trading nation differentiates us from other countries. Because if we don't have that, if we're just going to compete on volume or amount, it's a race to the bottom that we'll never win. So, we talked about the story. That's key. And I look to you and I challenge you to tell your stories of research and to tell producers about the value that RDAR does and the things we're doing to deliver not just output, but outcomes. And that we continue to advocate to our provincial and federal counterparts the value that this organization and research has for the ag sector. So, as we finish today, I encourage you to go around and look at all the research that we've supported here, some of the highlights, and have a great afternoon.